video is a little bit of fun, nothing too serious, more of a playthrough of both versions and how the demo version differed from the original game, and giving you an idea of how significantly the final game may be now we've played that one-shot demo. Obviously the first big difference that we saw when the demo came out way back on the original PS1 that shipped with the Resident Evil Director's Cut, or on some covers of magazines. I still own the Resident Evil Director's Cut here, but it's not in the best condition, but the disc still works. Here I'm playing on my PS3, still possibly the best retro machine or backwards compatible machine you can get for both PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2. Stick the disc in, play the game, and it all runs beautifully. Everything's turned off, no smoothing or upscaling running here. We want native pixels running on that screen, just as the developers and the artist intended way back in 1998. Designed for CRT, this was a beautiful looking game, and now it's 20 years old, which obviously is a lifetime in video game development, and that's been seen here with the leap in technology. Now here on the PS1, this was an incredible looking game back at launch. Coming out towards the end of its life, remember this was only a year before the Dreamcast launched, and then the PS2 was only a year later. So this was a tail end title for the PS1, and it certainly pushed it hard. In fact, it was actually intended to be ported to the Sega Saturn, but it never actually made it. Now the first thing you see here in this original machine here running at 30 FPS on the original PS1 with a 320 by 240 resolution. The PAL version here is obviously 320 by 288 at 25 FPS. The pre-rendered backdrops and polygonal models always stood out on Resident Evil titles, as did the PlayStation's dithering, and all the effects that the PS1 was very famous for to reduce the rendering load and still give you high quality visuals. All this section here with the gun shop going into the door, it's all completely missing from the original, the one-shot demo we've just played, so obviously this can only be shown here on the PS1. There obviously were large differences between this version and the actual final release version, even though this whole section is very similar with the additional intro that's skipped on the demo. Once you get out of this shop and move outside of the building, I'm going to skip some of this not to show the whole game playing through the demo because you might get bored. Once your newfound friend becomes fast food for the zombies, you make your way out and down the back alley. Now here on the demo, you can go straight through the alley over the top and out to the front of the police station. The gate doesn't open, you just move straight on. In the original game, this section was actually blocked off with an ambulance. You have to go all the way back through that area where the zombies are. They break out of the cage. And then you have to go through the basketball court, back to the front, through a bus, shoot some people, and then come back round to the front of the police station, which is where we join back up with the demo, where you can run straight back into the police station itself. And there you go, in the front, run past the zombies, and back into the police station. And this is where the new one-shot demo picks up from where we are in this version, and we can compare the two together. Visually, the difference is obviously extreme. You don't need me to highlight the fact that this has gone from one end of the spectrum to the other at this point. The CGI and pre-rendered work in the original Resident Evil 2 title is leagues behind what we're seeing now in real-time rendering on the game itself. And this is something at the time when I played the game, I was really looking forward to the fact that one day we'll be playing games that look this good, and yet here we are. And people still aren't happy with what's being delivered. I really can't understand that myself, but what I do love is the fact that they've kept everything consistent but updated and refreshed it. You can see that they've moved the desk to the front of the police station, which makes obvious sense, rather than the back of the police station. And the fountain is still there, but it's up on top of the stairs now. So all the visual quality and the clues of the game, it feels familiar but new. This cutscene here is obviously very different. On the original PS1 game here, you can actually go in and use swipe cards, the key cards in the game, to unlock this lobby. On the demo, you can't get to the screen. Here on the new version, obviously you get a real-time cutscene which plays out. Everything's more cinematic, and that's obviously the nature of the beast of where we are in modern day gaming, and I do like it, it works. The original tank controls are there, and no one would really play a fixed camera game now. It did feel good and responsive, even if you got used to that slow, hesitant and panic that the gameplay induced, certainly from the controls, and they've kept that consistent with the PS4 here. Even though it's third person and over the shoulder, you're not a smooth fast runner, you can't roll out of the way and have frantic actions, which we saw in Resident Evil 6. They've kept it slow paced and kept that feel of the original title, even if they've ramped up the visual quality. Here the whole demo runs off into completely different areas. This shutter section isn't even open on the demo on the original PS1. You don't get to this side of the room unless you've got the full game, and you get it by going in and speaking to Marv. And then here I can see on this section here on the demo, you walk in and he's already a zombie, but on the original game itself he sits and has a cutscene here with you which we saw in the one-shot demo here, but again, it's completely different. It enters differently, you meet him differently, you come out of that right-hand side of the building itself, so everything has been changed, even if it's kept familiar. Once you go down that section in the demo here, you can see on the full game, they've kept the look and layout very similar indeed. You can see the vending machines at the end. Okay, there's no water on the floor, but everything feels similar. The corridor flow and the map layout is very, very much the same. So you don't get lost because you kind of understand and remember, oh, I've been here before. I'll go down this room, go into that room. Once going back to the original PS1 demo and we move on to the right-hand side here on the new game, obviously taking it from Resident Evil 7, you cut through and press the shutter button and get through. Here on the demo though, you pick up that magical key in the room where Marvin was, unlock the door, discard it because you don't need it anymore, and move straight through to the next section. Now once we get through this door, things change yet again. You get this third person outside the window, giving them that image that you just saw Licker go past in the previous section, which you don't get here on the new version, but you do see all the carnage and the dead body on the floor. Here on the new version though, that's hanging from the ceiling. You get that lovely zooming as the ripped open face and the wide open jaw of the guy that's been killed in the corner, presumably by the Licker, which you don't see in this section, and it builds your expectations here. You expect to see it. Playing the demo, everyone expected to see it, and it's not there. You just don't get it. Now this is another split between the original game itself and the demo. Here the Licker just drops down in front of you and attacks you, but on the actual demo you get that CGI section here with its tongue flipping out and hanging down. Now I know this has been shown already by Capcom, the new version. I've not seen it myself, I've tried to avoid watching it, but I hope they don't ruin this section and add it and flamboyance it up a little bit too much, but we'll have to wait and see. But this section feels very familiar indeed, without the Licker. Obviously there's no Licker in the room, but aside that, everything feels the same. It drops down, it attacks you, and again you've got the shotgun here so you can just kill it quite quickly. Now on the demo at this point, you don't have the shotgun. You have to move through the game here and get it later on in the weapons room when you get the key card. This demo was a year before the actual game launched. It released in 1997 when the director's cut of Resident Evil 1 came out. Now this demo here, everyone doesn't know really specifically, but this was shown last year, last E3, so literally a year before the game came out. So it's very similar in terms of timescales of what they've done. So it's very obvious that they've kept everything close, and they know the passion and the history of Resident Evil 2, and they know that this demo was one of the most famous demos on the console. In fact, the PS1 and the PS2 were famous for all the demos that it had, you know, things like Metal Gear Solid. So I think just then as now, they're playing around with your expectations in the title. The Licker element is just exactly what I'm talking about. And I suspect it will play very differently indeed. It feels very quick to get through some of the sections, and that's not really standard Resident Evil 2. You backtrack a lot, you have to unlock things. There's lots of puzzles in the early section here. There's certainly more zombies than there was in the original PS1 in the demo here, so I expect that this will be significantly changed once the final game releases. I really appreciate the fact that they've kept everything quite close to the original without straying too far, but adding a lot more elements and expanding what's already there. Things like the actual inventory system, I love the fact that they've kept that in there. You've got a limited amount of inventory, you've got to use the toolboxes and swap things over. That's exactly what Resident Evil is all about, and it's actually another puzzle element of the title. It makes you think. You have to be strategic. Do you need that herb to use it? Can you keep the weapons? Can you drop it? Will you put things in a box and take the risk of finding it later? It adds that additional strategy element and puzzle element. The whole game is full of puzzles, you know, things like setting fire to the fireplace to drop the jewel out, or turning the dials into the beam of light. It's all pretty surreal stuff and not really that logical, but it's logically played out, even if it's a bit odd. And that's the whole part of what Resident Evil is all about, and they've kept that feel here, but they've really ramped up on the gore. I mean, the original title was a 15, the BBFC rating in the UK here was a 15. And this new game, I don't know, is it an 18? It certainly should be. The gore in it is just on another level due to the realism of the visual quality you've got now. Dismembering enemies, blowing their heads off, their legs off, blowing holes through them. All the things that I covered in my detailed analysis of the demo. It looks absolutely incredible. You know, the guy getting pulled in half is a definite nod to things like Day of the Dead. And I'm sure there's going to be a huge amount of elements in this title. Once we get into some of the transformation sections when the T-Virus really kicks in, I'm sure some of those elements are going to be really grotesque. I'm looking forward to it. It's a horror game. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about, and that's exactly what I want to play. Now, I know this may not have been an analysis, and people may be bored and thinking, why is this guy just talking about a demo? But I love Resident Evil. I'm a big fan of Resident Evil, and I want to do like a mini retro series and talk about a title. And I thought the demo element and the actual structure of it and how it changes from the original title itself, and when it actually finally launched, actually made a difference. So I wouldn't set your expectation yet. Just what you played on that demo, even though it was only a week ago, I'm sure the final game itself is going to be significantly different and really ramp up that quality, which we'll all find out this Friday when it actually launches. And you can check back here for a full review and a detailed analysis of every single version, which I'll be absolutely itching to dive into. Capcom have again delivered. Resident Evil 7 was a beautiful return to that Resident Evil series that kind of lost its way a little bit with 5 and 6. But here in 2, they have kept everything as original as possible and as close to that as possible without feeling like it alienates anybody, but it brings everything up to the modern age. And again, I can't stress how impressed I am with the RE engine and how well it runs across all consoles and how beautiful it looks consistently across every single machine. Anyway, that's it. I'm going to draw a close here and let this demo finish off. You can watch a couple more minutes of just PS1 and PS4 action until it draws to a close. Just for reference, you can finish the original PS1 demo in around 18 minutes. I think it slows you down. You can probably do it quicker if I legged it through, but I had to remember some of the things. I wasn't quite as quick as I used to be back in the day. But I managed to finish the PS4 demo here the first time round, I think in 18 minutes. And this is my second playthrough, you can see here, and I finished this one in 16 minutes, but I didn't skip any of the cutscenes, so I could probably get that down to about 8 minutes if I did that, and that's maybe a challenge. Speedrunning this title, something that I'll certainly get back into, because I used to do that on the original Resident Evil 2. I think I finished this game about 12 times back in the day because I just loved it so much. It was just such a good game to play. Anyway, don't worry, this won't be a constant thing, just talking and reminiscing about games. I just love Resident Evil and I thought I'd give it a bit of a look back and give you an idea of how the demos played out. If you enjoyed this or anything else, please like, subscribe and share where appropriate. And I'll see you all very soon in Raccoon City next week with far more action and exploits to dive into. I'll catch you on the next one.